and goddesses. Depends on how we decide to see ourselves, you know, as the one who brings answers and solves problems, or do we have to go out there to a church to say, you know, we have to pray to God or whatever, believe in a religion in order to solve and solve our problems to move forward.
Yeah, it's true.
So the whole God program, David Icke talks about it, the whole God program. I think the whole Christian, Catholic, religious is all part of keeping people, like Marx said, what did he say about religion being the opium of the people? It's all part of that God program, dumbing people really at the end of the day.
Another thing though, they believe in, because of the Bible and the Quran is full of miracles, the parting of the rivers, Jesus walking on water, healing the sick. They expect our God to be able to do that. We're on our way. Not many people know that there is a statue of Haile Selassie in London. We're on our way there now, and is it? We've got to turn left here, walk across this pathway.
When has this statue been
It's been there since 1936 when he came here. When the Italians invaded, he's been there.
And what was the whole idea?
That Cannizaro, this used to be an estate house for some aristocratic family, and I think and now they turned it into a hotel. Cannizaro Park. Duke of Cannizaro, his family lived there for a few centuries. Yeah, and I think the Kew Gardens were started there or something before they moved on.
Seasonal walk.
It's a Sicilian. Strange, it's a Sicilian. And ironic, Haile Selassie came here when his country was invaded by the Italians. And it was the family who owned it, right? The aristocratic British family, they were of Italian descent, Cannizaro. And as ironic, Haile Selassie stayed here when this country was illegally invaded, and they used mustard gas and all kind of stuff here.
Oh, I didn't know all this.
Yeah, it's very ironic. See, not many people know. I bet if you ask anybody if they know if there's a Haile Selassie statue here, they don't know. I'll ask this couple here and see what they say.
Do they know who Haile Selassie is?
Yeah. Hello, sorry to bother you. Did you know that there's a statue in here of Haile Selassie?
Sorry?
Did you know there's a statue in this park of Haile Selassie? Did you know it?
No, I didn't know.
It's just around the corner there.
All right.
Yeah, it was built in the 1930s when he came here from...
It's in the middle of the garden?
No, just around here. It's hard to find actually. You have to turn right and then you come to a little signpost. There's a fallen tree and it's got Lady Godiva's statue pointed, and it's got a sign pointing to Haile Selassie statue. Because there's a signpost there, I don't think this signpost mentions Haile Selassie statue.
Really?
But it's that one down there. Here you go. No, it doesn't say it here. Sorry. So let's go to the statue before it gets too dark. To get this statue is very hard to find. There's two ways to get to it. There's a quick way. No, I won't go that way.
Is through the
bush? You can cut through here, the bush.
Let's go this way, more adventurous.
We're going to walk through the bush?
Yeah.
Well, I'll show you the signpost. It's down here. Go through the bush.
Should have came with my jeans.
Yeah, you should have done.
Should have prepared us, OG.
Yeah, I know, but...
Lovely pebble.
Here we go. Here it is, man. His Majesty Haile Selassie statue.
We would have found it, AD. Taking our shortcuts.
His Majesty statue. Haile Selassie the first. Here he is. King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. That's his title. or one of the titles. The Emperor Haile Selassie, who visited Wimbledon when he took refuge in this country in 1936, made and presented by Hilda Seligman.
Was she German or what?
Well, they were aristocratic people. They lived in this big house, Cannizaro Park.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, is it, man? Haile
And the
Selassie
bench
statue.
here,
It was built
also
here in
memory of somebody.
1936, and it was refurbished about 10 years ago, I think.
I love that.
This great statue of Haile Selassie.
Come on, let's go. This way.
So we're gonna bless it with some herbs.
Yeah, you want to bless it with herbs.
Where is it?
I can just imagine Rastaman in there doing the Naya Binky drumming and all that. That's what I assumed, you know. It's actually live Haile Selassie.
What's he carrying in his hand? That was supposed to be his speech.
Yeah, the rod of correction, I don't know, no, scroll, yeah, scroll. Is it, man? Great Haile Selassie.
Rod
Not
of
many
correction.
people know about it. It is a great statue, man. Look how hidden it is.
It's a nice cozy
Yeah.
spot though.
Yeah, but we should get to it from there, actually. It is a picnic area,
Yeah.
it's called.
It's lovely.
Yeah. It is what you call a nice area. When he was leave there, one of the first places he stayed in was at Lincoln House on Parkside, Wimbledon Common. His host was Sir Richard Seligman, a leading metallurgist and entrepreneur, and his wife Hilda, a sculptor and active campaigner against British appeasement of the Italian invasion. During his stay, the emperor sat for a bust done by Hilda, which stood for many years in Cannizaro Park, just across Wimbledon Common. Now, what I told people about the statue, right, is Wimbledon Common, Cannizaro Park, where we are, is opposite. It's on Wimbledon Parkside. Right? Another irony upon ironies, right, is that this statue is opposite. Is on Wimbledon Parkside, opposite the Vatican Embassy. Right? It's all coming around in a circle because the Pope at the time gave his blessings to that Italian excursion into Ethiopia. What were they? They weren't liberating Ethiopia because Ethiopia was already a Christian country. It was probably a Christian country before Italy became whatever, right? It was a Christian country before England was a Christian country. The Pope gave his blessings for that evil guy Mussolini to come here, and he dropped his poison gas, mustard gas, which was illegal against the Ethiopians, right? During that war, it was illegal. It was banned from the First World War, right? And that horrified a lot of people. And now the statue is opposite the Vatican Embassy. So I would say to people, His Majesty keeps a watchful eye on his subjects, because there's a famous picture. Whenever the Queen met Haile Selassie, she had to bow to him first, not the other way around, because he's got more seniority. Because his line goes back to King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, and he was the 225th monarch after that. You know, so Ethiopia was a Christian long before this country. So, you know, it's actually mentioned in the Bible. So this has some history, and surprisingly, this park here, the Cannizaro people, they came from Italy, from Sicily, the country that invaded this country, and we're back in the park. And it all stemmed from when Italy tried to get involved in the scramble for Africa, started off by Cecil Rhodes and various other British, European imperialists. They focused upon North and East Africa, Libya, Somalia, Eritrea, but they tried to invade Ethiopia in 1896 at the Battle of Adwa, and they were defeated. The first time a European force was defeated by an African force. That was during the colonial era in 1896. The Ethiopians defeated them, and they had a modern army. You know, and that was the biggest humiliation, because no European country had ever lost a battle with a black country. That was as humiliating, ironically, as in 1912, Russia was at war with Japan. and the Japanese defeated them in this naval battle. And that was the first time a Western country, a white Western country, had been defeated by a non-white nation. But people always look at the Russian defeat to the Japanese, because at the time the Europeans were colonializing Asia as well as East Africa, and China was under British rule and Portuguese and Dutch. And the Japanese defeated them, and Japan became a major power. But people forget Ethiopian defeated a European country for the first time in 1896 as the first time, and that sent shockwaves. And that gave Ethiopia respect, because Ethiopia is the only country in Africa that was never colonized, right? In fact, at the time, there were only 3 independent black countries at the time of the invasion by Mussolini. That was Liberia, Haiti, and Ethiopia. You know, and at the time when Haile Selassie was crowned in 1930, Time magazine put him on the front cover, and it was a momentous event, and people will say that prophesied their liberation. You know, because despite what people say about Haile Selassie, his throne goes back and he's a symbol of freedom. I was speaking to some Nigerians at the knowledge school. We was talking about Ethiopia, and they said, look man, all you Rastas talk about is Ethiopia. Right, you know, there's more than one country in Africa. But I mentioned to them, where does the Yoruba people come from? And the guy was a Yoruba, he didn't know. I said, the Yoruba people, they come from Egypt and Ethiopia. Well, Ethiopia, at the time of the ancient Egypt, right, the pyramids, Ethiopia and Egypt were one country. And the earliest pyramids were in Ethiopia. And they used to, and they ruled Egypt, and then later Egypt then became bigger and more powerful, and then ruled Ethiopia. And then one of the earliest pharaohs, well, not the earliest, his name was Tutmose, and his statue is in the British Museum. And if you look at that statue of that pharaoh, he looks like a Yoruba, Nigerian. He doesn't look like an East African, like say Haile Selassie, yeah? Or Eritrean or Somalian. They got more straighter features. He looked like a West African, because in the south of Ethiopia, the people there, they look like West Africans, and that is where the people came from, you know. And if you look at the British Museum, so that is where they all come from. So Ethiopia is a significant part of this country, of this history of Africa and the world. And another point is, the woman who sculptured this, the reason they invited him here, they were against Mussolini's military expansionism, and she campaigned against it, as I mentioned earlier, and that's why she invited her, she stood up for it. But at the same time, after the war was over, Haile Selassie spoke at the United Nations, and he said, by rights, he was counting on Japan to stand firm with Ethiopia, because Japan was part of the League of Nations. And from what I can remember, I think the Japanese, when the Ethiopians defeated the Italians in 1896, that encouraged the Japanese that the Europeans were not superior, right? And I think Italy, no, Japan and Ethiopia were I think Japan sent Ethiopia some congratulation messages for what they done, and they were counting on Japan to stand firm with them. But what they did, the Japanese probably didn't want to ruffle two feathers, and the British as well. They wanted Italy to be on their side in case Germany was at war, so they let him get away with it. So they supported Mussolini, and the Japanese, they refused to condemn the invasion, you know, and they left Ethiopia on their own, because you would have thought that if any country would have been their ally, which could have been influential, would have been Japan, the only other non-white nation in the League of Nations at the time, I believe, was independent, and they left Ethiopia on their own. But the British and French and Italians, they did a plan where war would be avoided if, I think it was after the initial invasion, because Italy had forces in Eritrea and Somalia, they ruled it. Ethiopia would have a corridor to the sea, and and Italy could control it, but that fell apart. But anyway, once the war finished, Ethiopia was liberated and Haile Selassie came back. You know, but there are still Italians in Ethiopia, and there still is some connection, because there's an Italian reggae sound system called One Love. You know, and don't forget, not all Italians were obviously fascists, because in the north, I believe, was it in the south? The north, that is where you have Gramsci and the communist part. And there's certain football teams, I forgot which one it is. I don't want to name it in case I get it wrong. They tend to have communist support. And because they were against the fascist regime of Mussolini. And another irony was in 1978, I think, in Italy, a communist government could have been elected. They were very close in opinion polls. And the Americans sent all their warships up the Adriatic Sea. And if they'd won, who knows, there could have been some kind of military coup. Henry Kissinger said he would not allow a communist country in the West, but that's another story. So this thing goes a long, long way, Haile Selassie statue, and as you know, not many people know it's even here. You know, because I learned about this on the knowledge. We learn about statues, like we know about Mary C. Cole's statue. There's a statue of Henry VIII in London, only one. The King Alfred got a statue. The oldest statue in London is King Alfred's statue in Tower.
Is there any other African king statue?
Nelson Mandela is the only one. And he's in Parliament Square. Have you seen it? And he's standing there. But I don't like that Nelson Mandela statue, because you got Winston Churchill on a big, high pedestal. Abraham Lincoln, the man who kept slaves, who didn't free them, that's another point. He's standing above a chair. And there's Nelson Mandela on a little... He's just about a little bit higher than me, and those big statues are massive in the air, with his arms out like that, welcoming them in. He should be on the same level as them, or put him in Trafalgar Square, you know, next to Nelson Mandela, Nelson's column. But
it's interesting how Selassie is also in a secluded park where nobody knows about, really.
It's peaceful at ease, but not But more people should know. There's a signpost there. There's a signpost there. Look, Kamani, you know who that is, Kamani? Have reverence, Kamani. Have reverence.
Haile Selassie.
Yeah.
I don't want a reverence.
Have reverence, oh well, no, you don't understand. You don't know. I mean, be calm around the statue. It's not a toy, a plaything. They refurbished it about 5 years ago, I believe. It was all, when a bit, the cracks appeared on it, it got a bit black, and then they sent it away. And the granddaughter of the lady who made it, you know, she actually made it. Haile Selassie was sitting here, and she made it, and she put it in here during in 1936. It was built here, and as memory, because she felt strongly about the growth of fascism and expansionism. And what people don't realise, a lot of at the time upper class English people at the time, they had a bit of respect for Ethiopia, because it goes back to the Bible. It wasn't seen the same way as other African countries, because one reason why Ethiopia was never invaded by Europeans was because it was already a Christian country. The excuses that Europeans gave for going to Africa, like Cecil Rhodes and Livingstone, was to, what's the word?
Christianize.
Christianize the natives, the savages.
Bring the light
rubbish
to the continent of darkness.
But what people don't realize is Ethiopia was the savior. Well, the bedrock. It actually saved the three major religions: Christianity, Judaism and Islam. They all were carried in Ethiopia. At the time when there was conflicts in Europe, other places, it was Ethiopia where it was a peaceful country, and the kings of Ethiopia were virtuous or open-minded kings. They allowed religions in there. They wouldn't outlaw any religion. If there was a dispute between religious doctrines, they would sit there and reside over it. And in Ethiopia, the Judaism, because they're the Falashas, who up until the 1960s thought they were the only Jews in the world. They didn't know that there were Jews in Israel. They kept their communities sacred. And also Islam, the first convert from Muhammad was an Ethiopian called Bilal, and later on a few hundred years after Muhammad, right? Ethiopia supported, allowed Islam to flourish. It did not clamp down on it when there were uprisings in there. And same with Christianity. It was a Christian country. There were churches there. And Ethiopia was a Christian country. The Orthodox Church is the oldest. So people do respect it. That's probably why they did not like the idea. Why? Because Christians don't normally invade other countries against other Christians. Well, not during the imperial age. Obviously, Britain and France were at war. Well, sometimes it was Protestant and Catholic, but you couldn't invade other countries if they were already converted. You just tried to ally them with you as support.
So how long did he seek refuge for in this country?
No, he was there when he left. He went by. He was flown out in '36. It's throughout the invasion. He stayed there. As the country was liberated in 1941, I believe. That's when Italy was defeated and they started to lose the war. But they obviously got defeated, right? In the war, they were invaded by the Allies. Invaded of Italy itself in '42, was it, or '40? I can't remember. Because in the North African War, the Battle of El Alamein, Britain fought Germans and Italians, and in the North African campaign, and they got a kicking by the Allies. And I think he stayed there up until 1941 or after the war. Then he was allowed back in, because the West recognised Haile Selassie as the head of state. And so it's
Why didn't he seek refuge with the royal family here, since he was part of?
Well, with the royal family here. Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Why did they not?
I don't know. You know, maybe they heard about it, but because politics, because Britain recognised the Italians, the British government. Winston Churchill said it's okay. He recognised the Italians' claim over Ethiopia, because at the time in 1936 the war hadn't started, the Second World War. So he assumed that if they pacify Italy, it'll keep them on side, because Germany was the country they were fearful of. They didn't want to, they wanted to keep an ally against the Germans.